Now, for those of you who've never visited a winery or have actually walked a vineyard, you'll notice that behind me there's a series of posts that go down for quite some distance. That's your basic trellis system here at a winery. And to my right, you'll actually see a vine. Now, this may seem or appear to be dead, but this vine is in fact alive. Back in the fall, there was beautiful foliage and wonderful grape clusters hanging here. Now, this is a Chardonnay vine, so you would have had white grapes. What happens is after they harvest the grapes, the leaves basically get pruned back, and then of course the vines themselves are cut and pruned, and the remaining shoots or twigs that remain, these are what are going to bud here in spring, or what's known as bud break, to develop all new clusters of grapes. Again, we're here in the middle of winter, so it appears dead, but in fact I can guarantee you these vines are alive and well, ready to make some of Stonington Vineyard's award-winning Chardonnay.
Two guys are going to operate this. Three guys technically once you get into the pumping part of it, but two guys are going to be just dumping buckets into this. It takes about 10 minutes to put 70 of them in there. And inside here there's a basket and a bunch of paddles. They knock the fruit off the cluster. All the stems come out here as waste product. And from here it's pumped through our must pump. If it's a white wine, it goes directly into the press. If it's a red wine, it'll go into these grape bins here. We'll get about 180 gallons of raw juice per ton of grapes and end up with around 165, 160 gallons of finished wine at the end of the process.
Right here, this is the heart of Stonington Vineyards. We're actually in the winery where they actually make the wine. And you'll notice here that all around me I'm surrounded by implements. Now, this is what happens when the producers don't like me, but this is another part of the story. What we have right here are the hoses used to actually access the wine that's produced here in the fermentation tanks. So these hoses are used to actually put the wine in the tanks and also extract the wine. Now, you might also notice that all of the stainless steel tanks, they don't look like they're stainless steel because they actually have an insulation coat that's placed around them. But this is where the wines that are produced are then fermented before they're put into the oak barrels, which is where they're aged. Now, you might notice that up at the top, there's a little bit of an apparatus. There's a French word. The word is called pigeage. Now, what that basically means is to punch down, because when the wine's fermenting, they'll take the grapes or the yeast and they actually punch it down, hence the word pigeage.
Well, these are our variable capacity tanks, and what that means is that the lid actually floats on the top of the wine rather than these closed collar tanks. So it actually, when the wine changes temperature, it gives us more room for expansion, so we have less bubble over in these tanks, whereas all the pressure would be down onto that 2.5 inch bung up there, and they'll bubble out during the spring sometimes.
Jimmy, again, as the assistant winemaker, is responsible for the production and the general operations of the Stonington Vineyards. What is it, Jimmy, that you find the most intriguing about your job or the aspect?
It's a very interesting job overall. You get to work outside, you get to work inside. There's a lot of science that I'm learning.
So much like Mike McAndrew, you learned about winemaking really from
here
the ground
on
to
the
ground.
job, right here. Library portion of our warehouse, and we've been doing vertical tastings of our wines, which is tasting the same wine back 3 or 4 years through the different vintages, so we can get people to understand they can buy the wine now for the low price, and then they could be drinking a $40 wine in 5 years if they want to hold on to it, and it'd be only a $30 wine essentially.
Now, once the wine has been fermented in the stainless steel tanks and then aged for 2 years in the French oak barrels, it's then transferred from the French oak barrels through the bottling line into the actual bottles. So once the wine gets put into these bottles, the very last step is placing a cork into the bottle, and then you'll have the foil capsule put on top of the cork before you find it available for your purchase in the tasting room here at Stonington Vineyards. We're in perhaps the best part of the winery right now, which is known as the barrel room or the chive. Now, once the wine comes from the stainless steel tanks, it's then transferred into oak barrels in the right. Now, Stonington Vineyards has all of their oak barrels produced in France, so it's French oak. Now in America, we would call a producer of oak barrels a cooperage, but in France, we refer to those as tonnelleries. Now, each barrel also has a different toast. Now a toast basically means that the inside of the barrel is fired. So you have a light toast, a medium toast, and a dark toast. Okay, so what we have here is two of the particular French oak barrels that Stonington Vineyard actually ages their wine in. Now what's really unique about the oak barrels, you wouldn't think, for those of you who may not drink wine or for those of you who may not be as knowledgeable, every wine is aged. Now typically a wine is aged for a minimum of 2 years. Now what's very unique about oak barrels, specifically French oak barrels, is that every barrel actually has a life expectancy. And the average life expectancy of a barrel of wine, an oak barrel, is 5 years. Now for this particular oak barrel was made in 2013. So you figure a 5-year lifespan, this oak barrel basically has another couple of years of life when it would be retired in 2018. What's also unique is a lot of people don't know what these letters mean. And what MT basically means is medium toast. Now in the previous barrel that we looked at, you saw the initials said MT, but you'll notice that these initials say MT plus, which basically means that's medium toast plus, or in essence, a little bit darker than the other previous barrel we looked at. Now a lot of people mistakenly believe that wine barrels are filled from the top. In other words, where we saw initially the dates and also the letters of the wine. But in fact, you fill the wine barrels and drain the wine barrels from the bunghole. A little piece of information and trivia that you're going to want to remember. Stick that in your bunghole.